Back with the Football in Focus from the Kickback Jacks on Battleground Avenue. Back for a Thursday night. Joe Sirera's with us in the News and Record. Time to get back into the sports of the week. Thought I'd start out before we forget to mention it because I want to show the proper respect for Dez Woods, who passed away in that wreck back on Sunday night. It's been almost a week now, or Sunday morning, I guess it was, and that's just a sad occurrence and tough for Southwest Gopher, tough for the Woods family, tough for Brandon Lambert's family too. And Brandon, what happened there, you just hate to lose a kid like that. He was only a sophomore last year, would have been a junior this year, and had a wealth of talent among him. And a great kid too. Everybody talked about that fact.
Yeah, I was over there for the candlelight vigil they had on Tuesday night at Southwest, and it was very difficult to see how much some of those folks were hurting, but from a positive standpoint, everybody was pulling together. Everybody was supporting Brandon too. Dez's aunt, Kizzy, basically said, nobody's at fault. This is an accident. This stuff happens, and you need to take care of this young man too, just like you would have Dez. And that was great to hear. It was a lot of emotion, but I think that community will really support those kids. And when Brandon Lambert gets back to Guilford College, hopefully to play basketball there, Tom Palumbo's a great coach. That's a great program, and they'll have his back there too and support him there. So that's all you can ask for at this point. It's really tough.
Brandon Lambert, able to get out of the hospital to be there and attend the ceremony, the vigil. That was good to see. His injuries didn't force him to stay in the hospital and miss that. Glad he could be there and take that in and be a part of that too.
Yeah, he had one arm in a sling and bandaged from a scalp wound, but he's doing okay. It was just nothing. From what I spoke to one of the troopers who did the report, or was reading from the accident report. No speed involved, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing. It was just an accident.
Just trying to correct his drive off the side.
Went off to the right, overcorrected back to the left, and went into the median at a spot where there were a lot of trees. Hit 4 trees and hit the last one head on, and the car, when the front end hit, the back end came up, and the roof hit the tree, and that was where the real damage was, unfortunately.
Tough situation. Dez Woods, Southwest Guilford, our thoughts and prayers remain with him, his family, and the Southwest Guilford community, their family too. Great kid. I interviewed him last year. I said, "You're doing great for your senior." He said, I'm just a sophomore. He played like a veteran player. He was a big part of what they did, big part of the stretch run, and definitely a strong player for his age, and a good scorer, good rebounder. I mean, they had a good balanced team last year. Christian Martin, Dez Woods, the Langleys, Lambert, all those kids. They played extremely well.
He was an energy guy. He was one of those guys that when he came into the game, you noticed him immediately just because of how much energy he brought to that team and to the floor. And you hate to lose any young man or woman that way, but he meant a lot to that team and a lot to that community.
Without going into too many details about it, we'll talk about more as the season gets closer. That's going to be a totally different Southwest Guilford team this year, no doubt about that. A lot of different team.
The Langleys, who were returning, Kobe and Keyshawn, have transferred to Wesleyan. Obviously Brandon Lambert is gone. Obviously now the loss of Dez Woods. Cam Langley's at A&T.
The Cooper Cunningham kid may be the returning shooter. That guy can shoot the daylights those 3-pointers, so he had some prolific shots last year for their team.
He had some huge shots.
Sure did.
That's something they'll lean on, but it's a tough situation.
Different deal, different conference, different like our conferences now with our conference games. It got in the way where football-wise switching kind of the gears that way, and some big games this week. Some teams with records like Ragsdale's 4-3, Grimsley 2-5. But that's a tough matchup right there. That's kind of a hard game to call because Grimsley played Reynolds like a 14-point game last week. Grimsley's played some people close, and Ragsdale has played decently. They nearly won their game last week. They came up a loser, but they nearly pulled off a win there against one of those other Winston-Salem teams. I think it might have been Reagan. But again, Ragsdale and Grimsley, good matchup there.
That was actually Glenn who's unbeaten. It was a 19-13 game.
Absolutely,
I don't think I'm going out on a limb, and no disrespect to High Point Central, Northwest Guilford, Ragsdale, and Grimsley, but I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying that Paige is the team to beat in the new Metro 4A, the 5-team conference. These 2 games this week, that Ragsdale-Grimsley game and the Northwest Guilford High Point Central game, I think are going to start sorting out who's in the hunt for second in that conference and third. But second is the one nothing is locked as far as the playoffs except that first place spot this year. But
and a lot of those guys, like Paige, could well get a bye in the first round because of the number 40 teams.
Exactly. But, I think that's what you're looking at here. Grimsley has had problems with turnovers, problems with snaps, problems with a lot of things. There is some talent there. There's some good coaching. It's just a matter of when they put a game together.
Yeah, you wish it all come together on the right night for them. It would be a great night tomorrow night because the first game for them in the conference too. And Northwest and High Point Central kind of alluded to that. You got Eastern Alamance and Northern Guilford. Big game for Northern Guilford because they gave Northeast a very solid contest last week. Northeast got the win.
A little bit of a controversial finish there.
Yeah, that offensive pass interference call with the end zone with Fort Moses. The first pass that the quarterback came in and threw the game when he came in. Leonard's first pass of the game was a touchdown pass called back because of the offensive interference. But again, you got Northern hosting Alamance who played with Northeast at 14-10 game there. So Northern played them to a 10-6 game. You got to think, well, they played them that close. We can play them that close. Got a chance to beat. We got to knock them off. Beat Eastern Alamance. Possibilities there for Northern, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think Northeast defense is the strength of that team, and I think that was what really surprised Eastern Alamance when they played. If I remember right, Northeast was up 3-0 at halftime in that game, and it ended up 14-10. I don't know if Northern's defense can hold up quite as well as Northeast did, but it's got to give them some belief that they can pull it off. And, Eastern Alamance has been a very strong program for a long time under John Kirby, the coach there. They've had some very talented players.
They're 6-0, and some people feel like they're down a little bit this year because Western Alamance is also 6-0. They feel they're the better team, but Eastern Alamance right there, unbeaten again.
Yeah, I think this is a big challenge for Northern, but it would be a huge win for Eric Westberg in that program if they could pull it off.
Fort Moser is the best slant receiver in the area. That guy on the slant, I mean, I almost feel like I could complete at least one pass to that kid because he's so good coming across the middle of that slant. He's there every time. It's open quite a bit of the night. I won't say all night long because that might be stretched a little bit, but it's open quite a bit.
Great hands, great athletic ability. The touchdown that was called back for offensive pass interference was a highlight reel catch by him after the alleged pass interference, I'll say, in that game. And I don't mean to take anything away from Northeast. They played an excellent ball.
I told the guy this week, I think they should not call offensive pass interference when the defensive player is going to have an interference. But offensive pass, you're fighting for your life out there. I'm just trying to get some position. Unless I throw the guy to the ground, either way, it should not be interference. Just let the guys go for it and play and quit calling all these interference calls.
If two guys are going for a ball that's in the air, I totally agree with you. Where I think offensive interference doesn't get called enough is all of the pick plays. Right. I mean, Clemson won a national championship with two of them last year, and they're not the only team that does
it. That's deceiving almost.
But, I mean, you'll see guys on one of those plays with Clemson where one of the receivers goes low and goes for the guy's legs when they're crossing. That's not incidental contact. That's offensive pass interference, and that's in every team that will put two receivers on a side of the field. That's in every one of those teams' offenses now, those kind of pick plays. That's offensive pass interference, and it doesn't get called that much. Two guys are going up fighting for the ball. You let them play, in my opinion, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's like going for a loose ball in basketball. Let the guys go for a little bit. No call, let them play, let them fight for it. But you think about even some teams use the ref if they can in case they try to get him a ball to pick play.
You run the crossing patterns over the middle. Yeah,
exactly. But we got that game. We've also got Northeast Guilford coming off a very big win at 4-2 at Rockingham County, 4-2. Both those guys 1-1 in the conference. Major game up there, I guess, in Rockingham County. The big stadium tomorrow night. Rockingham County, an improved team this year with their new coach.
Yeah, Brad Baker.
They got a quarterback throwing for a lot of yards too.
Chris Shoemaker, senior, and Brad Baker, new coach. Mike Jebbia, who coached them last year, is their defensive coordinator. He stayed around. He had been the defensive coordinator before that. Mike loves Rockingham County High School and loves those kids. You
gotta appreciate a coach like that because 9 times out of 10 that coach is let go. He's out the door within 15, 20 minutes.
He loves those kids and loves that school, and he stayed. But that's a huge game. Both of those teams have lost to one of the Alamances. Rockingham County lost to Western Alamance. I think it was 49-6, pretty decisively. And Northeast, we talked about their game with Eastern Alamance was 14-10. So you've got to figure that these two teams and maybe Northern are in the mix for the number 3 spot in that conference. And this is a huge game for both of those teams. And another meeting of, I don't know if you want to call them disciples or fruit off the Jimmy T coaching tree. Brad Baker, former Reedsville assistant. Earl Bates, former Reedsville assistant. They're both very good friends with Doug Robertson at Eastern Guilford. There's so many guys who've come out of that Reedsville program.
Pretty soon, every coach around is going to have some kind of Jimmy Teague DNA among their body there somewhere, it seems like.
It's worked. It's worked for a lot of teams. Well. He does things with that football program very well up there. And if you come through that program, you know football.
Yeah, Ragsdale may be the best team in the entire triad right now.
They've been
Among
number
all
one in our,
teams.
they're number one in our poll this week after Dudley lost. It was very close between the Reidsville Rams and Paige, but Reidsville had more points in the voting.
And I'm even saying the Alamance County teams and the Forsyth County teams, too, they may be the best team around. Although West Forsyth is a very good team, Glenn's a good team, but Reidsville on a given day, they may be the top team in the triad. Could well be. What do you guys call them up there? What's their little hashtag?
They on Twitter, they are the football capital of North Carolina. Self-proclaimed, but when you've won 19 or 20 state titles, you can make a pretty good case. It's pretty much them or Shelby.
Yeah, and a lot of those titles get lost from back in the old days. People weren't even aware. When Reidsville became a football power, wow, these guys are playing pretty good now. But the story goes they played well back in the earlier days, too, which got missed upon a lot of us. Smith at Dudley tomorrow night, big game for both teams. Huge game for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, Smith is 0-2 in the new Piedmont Triad 3A. Another loss, and they're not playing for first or probably even second at that point when you've got Mount Tabor in that conference playing really well right now. Dudley, just a lot of injuries.
If they get well, they could be good, but they're still not anywhere near well yet, are they? Got a lot of guys still walking.
A lot of
wounded.
people out. Coach Stephen Davis told me quarterback Gerald G. Simpson is probably not going to play tomorrow night because his ankle is still messed up from that Southeast Guilford game. He tried to go. He hadn't practiced all week before the Southwest Guilford game. He tried to go and he couldn't. They're going to use Quad Monroe, Richard Monroe IV. They're going to use Alston Hooker. They played a receiver,
what was the kid,
Taiwan Young, toward the end of the game against Southwest Guilford. They're down to their second or third string center. Miles Berry is out with an injury. Nigel Fitzgerald still
Crossan led the game last week. Reggie Robertson started, I guess, but left, right?
Reggie's still battling a hamstring injury. Nigel Fitzgerald had a 2-game suspension for in his ejection from an altercation in the Southeast game. This is game 2 of that suspension. They had a week off before that Southwest game and still couldn't get everybody healthy. As you say, if they get people healthy back, they're still Dudley. That's still a.
And plus, it's homecoming too, right? Their homecoming game.
Yeah, and a huge rivalry in the city.
Yeah.
It's
used to be
talk about
back in the day when they went to that old A&T Stadium and played 20,000 people came out to watch it. That was crazy down there.
I was going to say people talk about Grimsley and Paige. Smith and Dudley is a pretty darn good rivalry in its own right, and a lot of emotion. Hoping Smith brings their band tomorrow night because we know Dudley's band will be there. I'd love to hear those two bands.
They need to challenge each other. It's a big challenge,
but it should be a good football game. Smith is playing pretty good football, a tough overtime loss at Parkland last Friday night. They're playing great defense where they struggle a little bit as offensively. Sophomore quarterback Jordan Williams still committing some turnovers, throwing some interceptions. As he grows into that role, if he has a game where he makes good decisions all night and makes some plays, they got a shot.
Yeah, that quarterback's on the way up. He's on the rise, just beginning to take that role under his belt and learn it and study it and get good at it. And the Cheeks kid's close to 400 and some yards receiving now. Which you get to 500 or 600 yards receiving in a year, that's not a bad year at all.
Yeah, for a team that has struggled a little bit offensively at times, he's clearly the go-to guy. And Jordan Williams just a tremendous athlete, a really good basketball player for Coach Derek Partee over there also.
I'm sure Coach Partee and Coach Waddell are probably both at those games watching closely.
Oh,
make
yeah.
Sure their investments are doing okay.
And making sure that no one gets hurt for basketball. Yeah.
What about that Southwest win over Dudley last week? Is Southwest for real now? Is this the team on the up and come? They're going to win that conference, do you think? What do you think?
They still have to play Mount Tabor. They still have some tough games ahead of them. They're still going to have to play Smith next week. They've got a week off this week. Hopefully, for their sake, they can kind of enjoy that win over Dudley, but keep it in perspective. Last year they were 6-0, and then the wheels kind of fell off, and they got into the playoffs, but it was a struggle. I think this year with 2 losses, I think this is a better team than the team that was 6-0 at one point last season.
I thought the team about 3 years ago when Jerry Rainey was a sophomore, I thought that was a better team than last year's team when everything kind of settled out at the end of the year.
Well, and we were talking about this before we went on the show. They're 3-0 since Devin Flowers, the freshman, became their primary quarterback. It allows them to use Jaron Rainey in some different ways. The coach, Eric Rainey, talked about Devin Flowers to JP Mundy, who was at the game for us last Friday night, and said he's cold, and he meant that in the best way possible, that he's a cool customer, that he doesn't get rattled for a freshman, that he wants to make big plays, and he's capable of making them. And when you have a freshman grow up that quick and play like that against Dudley, That's huge, and their defense was outstanding. 4 turnovers, 2 of them for touchdowns early. They never let Dudley get into the game.
And your job's safe for the next 3 or 4 years because you got the Flowers kid's just a freshman. You got the Godfrey kid over High Point Central. He's a freshman, so a lot of young talent out here.
Yeah.
It never seems to dry up. It just keeps coming in different directions, different places. Now you got Southwest from High Point becoming one of the tougher teams. They've become the elite club in some ways. They're working in that direction.
Yeah, and Paige isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Dudley's not going anywhere, despite the loss last week and despite the injuries. If Dudley's
As long as Coach Davis doesn't go anywhere, they should be okay.
And the way things work, you want to get your time in as a coach and a teacher in North Carolina before, if he ever wants to go back home to South Carolina, he's going to get his time in first,
right.
and for that reason. But they're not going anywhere.
There's more than one game plan, right?
Oh yeah, always.
Definitely. The education plan, the football plan, both plans. The plan last week was for Paige to beat Eastern Scythe, and the Pirates got the job done. Big win in Kernersville, and they've got the week off.
Yeah, that was not the prettiest game, but if you like defense, it was good. There were some big special teams plays by both teams.
When Thomas Murray's big again.
Thomas Murray, he won that game with a field goal, 20-19. His field goal gave them a 1916 victory a few weeks earlier at Eastern Guilford. A game where a punt by him, a 41-yarder that pinned Eastern Guilford back at their 4, flipped the field. It flipped the momentum in that game. He's been big. He had a punt block, but that was because of a bad snap. Paige's defense is the story of that team. That and a very strong offensive line that always seems to have 1 or 2 drives in them in the second half when they've worn you down, where they just grind on you, with Javondre Page running the ball, Sincere Davis running the ball, Keandre Page running the ball, various people, and they just pound you, and they want to get you in that situation.
Are they using Cody some too?
They're using him on some jet sweeps. They're putting him in the backfield. I mean, they're finding different ways to use the talent, to use Nassim Alston, Assad Alston. There's a lot of firepower. There aren't a lot of big guys on that offense. When you had DeAndre Overton, James Ellis, Ronald Polite. Polite wasn't that big, but you had some bigger receivers for a while. These guys are a little smaller, but they're tough. They run hard. Keandre Page isn't small, the running back, but he's been fighting a foot injury. But they're finding ways to use all those weapons that they have.
Offensive line doesn't get a lot of recognition, but that may be the standard bearer for the past 3 or 4 years to all the Page success. That offensive line, they keep replacing the guys. They graduate, and they all come back. Makovic's been there about 4 years now to lead the way up front.
Yeah, it's, defense wins football games, and offensive lines move the ball.
What about Murray? Has he got any college offers you're aware of? Can you talk about that?
The last that I heard was that he was getting some interest, but he didn't have any Division I offers or anything really solid from Division II. But you look at him, and he's worth it. And when you look around the area, we have a lot of good punter kickers, basically, guys who do both. Cody Creed at Northwest, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Nick Carter, who's the kicker up at Northern. Colin Smith at Eastern Guilford has a big leg. There's a lot of leg talent. Even
Joseph kid at
even
Dudley.
Faraji Joseph at Dudley, he's made a difference for them at times this year by giving them touchbacks on a lot of kickoffs.
And you think about Murray trying to find a place to play in college. Harrison Kaiser's at Guilford College. He'll be kicking Saturday, their first home game of the year this Saturday.
Yeah.
First home game for Guilford.
Strange schedule.
In October. Crazy.
Yeah, strange schedule.
But they went for those Division I games. Davidson and Jacksonville had to get those games in and force them to play at home in October mainly. What about Eastern Guilford Southeast? Seems like they're the two in the conference, the Mid-Piedmont 3A conference. Everybody else seems like they're not even going to be there. It's like a 2-horse race. It's like Southeast Guilford. If they could beat Eastern next week at home, they could drop that Dudley loss. They could win the playoffs unbeaten if they win the rest of the games.
Yeah, that's a huge game. There are some big games next week. This week the schedule's a little bit lighter, but that's basically a de facto conference championship game. It looks like at this point, and
Eastern could go in with maybe just about one conference loss because they could, or one loss. They could drop either the loss to Paige. They also lost to Smith. Drop one of those. They've only got one loss going in.
Yeah, and 2 3-point losses. I mean, you look at Southwest Guilford, and their 2 losses, I think, are if I remember correctly, are by a combined 4 points. And you look at Eastern Guilford, and their 2 losses are 2 3-pointers. I mean, the difference that Razor's edge sometimes in football or in any sport, it's that fine. And I look forward to that Southeast Eastern game. I mean, Southeast defense is solid. Eastern's defense is solid. I don't expect a high-scoring game, but I think that's going to be a well-ball
And
game.
the rest of that conference just is not there right now at all. For the most part, it's just not there.
It kind of ebbs and flows. I mean, Ashboro has really struggled, and Kevin Gillespie, the former Paige coach, his first year down there. But he's got a young team, and he's trying to change things down there. And they've had talent, and they've been good before. They're not going to be down for long. But right now, yeah, I think you've got to look at those two teams and not much else.
And that Paige Northwest Guilford game next week, not quite as big as it was at one time, though, but still it's going to be pretty big, especially for Coach going back over there again. Coach Rolfus going back to his old school. Maybe not even the football players. Maybe it'll be big to them, but maybe the student body, they'll want to jump on board and make it big for them, too.
Yeah, and it's a conference game now. I mean, that's going to be part of it.
There's going to be a lot of beat Central, make it even bigger. Northwest and Central, a little bit different maybe on the reflection there, but they beat Central going in against Paige. That could be pretty large.
It's tough right now for Northwest when you lose a player as talented as Trey Turner, who had that shoulder surgery for multiple dislocations. That hurt. Cam Cloud.
It seems like Cameron Cloud's got to become the man now. He and the Caleb Andrews kid, maybe the Hardy kid, those three guys, they've got to provide the offense. The quarterbacks still both put up some pretty good numbers there.
Well, and I was getting to Cam Cloud. Did kind of step it up last week. 3 touchdown catches, 2 of them for big yardage. You know, he's got that kind of ability. He's got the ability as a receiver. He's got the ability as a runner.
What is he, a junior?
Yeah, on jet sweeps, on any way you kind of want to run the ball with him. You know, it's a bunch of different little things that have been a problem for Northwest. They led Reedsville 3-0, and then the bottom fell out. And
well, you could say this: these guys have been wanting the football. Here's your chance. Football is yours now. Got plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, and that Paige defense is going to challenge you. If they can do something offensively against Paige, should be a good game.
Must win for Smith and Dudley both tomorrow night, you feel like? Must win?
Yep. I mean, I think Smith with 2 conference losses is already in trouble, but the one thing in their favor is that other than Dudley, those are probably the 2 toughest teams in the conference. I take that back. They still have to play Southwest. You know, they're probably looking at 3 losses at least. If they lose this one, it's going to be very tough for them to do anything in the conference and maybe even make the playoffs.
It's all conference all the way now, right? All these are conference games the rest of the way.
Everything. Yep.
So lock it down. Lock it down there.
Yep.
Coach of the year at the midway point. Who's the coach of the year? Maybe you may have a couple of candidates. Who's the coach of the year right now for you?
I think Earl Bates has to be in that conversation. The job he's done at Northeast. I think, you know, this may sound crazy, but I think you got to consider Jared Rolfus coming in and taking over a program. Yeah, Paige is good. Yeah, the talent's there, but he knew enough to not mess with that defense, to kind of let things be there and let the coaches who knew how to coach that defense continue to coach them up and add to that staff a little bit. And he's kind of putting his stamp on the offense with a sophomore quarterback, Javondre Paige. I think he's got to be in the conversation. You know, you can look at Brandon Wiggins. If Smith beats Dudley this week, you got to talk about Brandon Wiggins too.
And you got to look at Coach Tinsley
for the job he's done. Kennedy Tinsley.
Because if they beat Eastern Guilford, they wipe out that one loss, and they're like almost unbeaten going.
Another guy, if you want to play 6 degrees of separation, you can also connect to the Reedsville coaching tree because he's an assistant to Doug Robertson.
Certainly.
Another guy off that tree, but a Dudley grad, a former Carolina player. He's done a great job down there. I mean, that program wasn't, I wouldn't say down, but he's injected a different energy.
It's a different energy, yeah.
And it's working right now.
And their leading rushers got 201 yards on the year. I told the guy yesterday, I said, when did you think you'd see Southeast Guilford this late in the year, about 7 games in with leading rushers, got 202 yards. He usually got 2 guys, maybe one guy about 800, one about 700, maybe 650.
Well,
it's a different type of offense.
They lost a young man who was their leading rusher. It might have been Stevens. I can't remember who it was, but suffered a broken ankle early in the season after 2 or 3 games, and he was
Braxton King.
Braxton King.
Yeah.
You're correct, sir. Chad Stevens, I guess, is still there.
Yeah,
but
he's still trying.
Braxton King was the guy who got hurt. He was off to a pretty good start for them running the ball. They lost him, so that's a little bit of it, but they've gone to more of a spread. It's been an adjustment, but their defense is what's won games for. What kept them in the Dudley game into the 4th quarter until they got tired.
And you get more running yards out of Ryan Douglas now too, becoming a better quarterback because he sees the play better than he did before getting older. Before he knew he was out there, if he caught a pass play, he thought I got a pass. Now he realizes if they're covered, I can always run, get 5-10 yards possibly.
He bought a lot of extra time in that Dudley game to make some plays. Brent Apple, a receiver, has been a revelation for them. 34 catches. Douglas has completed 62 passes, 34 of them to Brent Apple, and he had a monster game against Dudley against a really good secondary.
Sideline pass route was open with Apple quite a bit of the night. He was good at it too. He caught them all late in the game.
Ryan Douglas figured out pretty quickly in that game who his go-to guy was that night, and he found him.
How about the biggest surprise team so far on the positive side of things? Who's been some of those biggest surprise teams so far this year?
For me, two teams that are playing tomorrow night: Northeast Guilford and Rockingham County. Rockingham County, obviously not a Guilford County team, but we cover the Rockingham County schools. I think those have been the biggest surprises to me, and to a much lesser extent, but a little bit of a surprise that Reedsville is as good as they are again. They lost some great talent from a team that went 16-0 last year, and I thought they'd take a little bit of a step back. We don't really know how good they are until maybe the third round of the playoffs because their conference is so weak.
And they lost that quarterback, right? He was
Tanner Wilson left that team. They had two guys.
The Leatherlow guy was like a massive leather in the back.
Sharon Leatherlow was a great runner and a linebacker. Austin Chestnut, six kick returns for touchdowns last year. He's at Carolina and playing on special teams.
UNC.
Yeah, playing on special teams. He was an invited walk-on, but they've gotten him on some special teams. And one of their linemen, Karan.
They could use him. They've got so many injuries down there to put him a wide receiver for Carolina. That's crazy.
He played both ways for Reedsville, and they had a very good lineman, Karan Johnson, who's also an invited walk-on at Carolina. They lost all that talent. They lost their kicker, Brad Green, and I thought, well, they're going to take a little bit of a step back. As I said, because of their schedule, we probably won't know until about 3 rounds into the playoffs, but so far, no step back at all.
How about the biggest turnaround by a team going the wrong way this season so far, headed the wrong direction?
Boy, I don't want to bury anybody, but
it's been tough on guys like Northwest. It's been tough on guys, especially like Southern Guilford.
Southern Guilford is where I would look, and I think it's not so much the new coach there this year, Jason Bradley. He's the third coach in 3 years.
Right.
Darryl Brown left to go to Grimsley. Earl Bates came in for a year.
It's almost like you're starting from scratch.
And what you also happens in those situations is it's hard for the kids to trust. It's hard for the kids to buy in when you've had people tell you for a couple of years, here's what we're going to do, and I'm here, and then they leave.
When it starts getting down, you're having a rough time in the game, rough time in practice in the season, you start wondering, does that guy really want to be here anyway? Who are we playing for? What happened?
Yeah,
this guy built me, this guy's trying to get something out of me. They start questioning things then.
I think there's an element of that. It's natural, and I'm not blaming the kids for feeling that way. And it's a tough situation for Jason Bradley to come into, but I think there's still talent there. I think this year has been a struggle, but I don't think they're going to be down for too long.
Be good to see those guys get back up again. How about changing gears a little bit? We got college football tonight, the big NC State-Louisville game. Is that in Raleigh or in Louisville, in Kentucky? Do you know?
I don't know.
I
got to believe it's at NC State. I saw a bunch of things about tailgating.
Same thing,
but college football, I don't follow quite as closely as this
I had that down
stuff.
earlier, but one of my friends up front, and I ran into one of our guys from the 199 Cleaners on Battleground. He was up by the front gate tonight here at the Kickback Jacks, grabbing a quick meal before he headed home. But that's a huge game, especially the Bradley Chubb Lamar Jackson matchup.
Yeah.
Just very intriguing. In Raleigh? Yeah, in Raleigh. Good.
Yep.
We're right there. But the matchup between number 9 Chubb and Lamar Jackson, I just want to see what Chubb does tonight. He's had 2 big weeks.
He is very, very prominent on NFL radar. Like right now, if the NFL draft were held and both of those guys were in it, he would go long before Lamar Jackson.
That's amazing till you think about it, because Lamar Jackson, Heisman Trophy man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Pass rushing defensive ends who can get to the quarterback right at a premium. Look at where Mario Williams from State was drafted a few years ago. Chubb has that kind of ability, and he's also good against the run. That's a huge matchup in that game, and he has to. I think the key for NC State is if Lamar Jackson hurts them throwing the ball, so be it, but do not let him make huge plays with his feet. And the natural tendency, if you're Chubb and some of their guys, is to go all out on the rush. You've got to contain him. I think if you're NC State, you want to keep him in the pocket.
You go all out on the rush, and he breaks the side at a different angle.
He breaks containment, and he can either run for huge yardage. I mean, if he breaks containment anywhere on the field, he's a threat to go whatever number of yards there are left, or pull up, if you come up to play him and throw deep, that's where he's dangerous. If they can keep him in the pocket a little bit and keep him from making plays with his feet, I think that's a game NC State
Bradley
could really
Chubb,
win.
if you're a coach, you especially coach at any level, you like to teach your younger players. I love the way this guy tackles because it makes the quarterback pay. And they don't call it very often, but he'll slam that quarterback to the ground. He'll lay on top of him. He give him that little extra oof at the end, which he finishes the play well.
Yeah, no, he's a big time talent. Like I said, a lot of NFL people have him. If he's in this year's draft in the top 5 or 10, or at the worst top 10,
I think
and
he's
Lamar
about
Jackson's
6'4", maybe 275. He's quick for 275, as you would like to see. These are the local guys. You got to love these guys. The NC State team. Reggie Gillespie the second. He got a Southern Gopher. He's had a few touchdowns this year. Ran for about 30 yards last week. Jarius Moorhead out of Eastern Guilford, number 31, making some big plays. This guy, Jermaine Pratt, he goes unnoticed, but Jermaine Pratt, a linebacker for State, is a menace. Yeah. He's fierce. He's tough.
Yeah, and he flew under the radar with me and some other people when he was over Ragsdale.
And he's big. He's about 6'3", weighs about 225, 230. Great size for a linebacker.
College strength and conditioning programs. These guys get bigger, and they get bigger very quickly. We talked about Thomas Hennigan earlier in the year. I saw him up at Appalachian State. He looks like an outside linebacker now, the former Northwest Guilford receiver and guard in basketball.
Like a grown man, they say. Bryson Speece is in NC State. Not sure if he's playing any, but they don't have him listed as a redshirt freshman. I guess we won't list him that until he's been there.
I think they're looking to redshirt him as a developmental year, but he's a talent. He's a smart kid. He's what you want in an offensive lineman.
All those guys, Gillespie, Moorhead, and Pratt will all factor in this game in some way tonight. They'll be
definitely.
Active.
I mean, Reggie Gillespie hasn't had the kind of college career that maybe his high school numbers would have indicated, but he's been a solid player.
He's been solid in key moments.
He catches the ball. He blocks. He runs. He does a lot of things that win games for you.
Yeah, and they've got running backs down there that run well, going hard into the line, getting to the outside with some of that speed. He gives you more of that power back, which you may need to get that 8, 9, 10 yards on a big play and get that touchdown. Hines runs well. Jalen Samuels is about as good as I've seen around. That guy's he's a freak.
Yeah, he's a guy when the NFL another guy when the NFL draft
freak, by the way, too.
Yeah, when the NFL draft rolls around, he's a guy a lot like very different size, maybe a little bit different skill set, but to me he's a guy like Christian McCaffrey, where NFL teams are going to look at him and look at all of the things that he can do for you on the field without you changing personnel. He's your personnel in 3 or 4 different sets. Right, exactly. There's so many ways you can use him. He's a big, much bigger version of McCaffrey in that respect. And NFL teams are just going to love him.
How about New England? Well, tonight, by the way, NC State and Louisville here at Kickback Jacks on all the TVs. Checking those TVs out tonight. Kickback Jacks here on Battleground Avenue. What about the game with New England, Tampa Bay? I think if Tampa Bay is in this game tonight, if New England could just do the Panthers a favor, the Panthers do them a little favor and beat Tampa Bay, that would be a big boost and nice help.
It would be huge help for the Panthers. They've had some headaches off the field to deal with this week, so I won't even go there. But Tampa Bay, the Patriots are really struggling on defense right now. I mean, I think that's why the Panthers were so effective. And Tampa Bay has a lot of different weapons on offense. This is a game where New England's season could kind of go south pretty quickly if they lose again tonight. That would be 3 losses very early. They're not in the strongest division in the world, but boy, 3 losses this early for New England would be shocking.
What about the Panthers? Could they shock the world and get another win come Sunday, going to Detroit Sunday? Got a road trip and had a nice finish to the game this past Sunday. Got the road trip against Eric Ebron and the Lions this coming Sunday.
Yeah, that's a decent.
And boy, Jim Caldwell's lasted a long time in Detroit, longer than people might have thought one in.
Yeah, they also have a guy who's not from Guilford County but lives here now. One of their starting safeties, Tavon Wilson, kid who played at Illinois. His fiance is from this area. They built a house out in Summerfield, so he lives here year-round now. He had a big fumble forced in their win last week. They're not a bad team, and in that dome, in that environment, that's a tough place to go. 2 very good quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford, right now, for now at least, the highest paid NFL quarterback. He's great at the comebacks, the fourth quarter wins. Cam Newton certainly has done that a few times. It's an interesting game to watch.
Yeah, and you think about it, the Lions could have Casey Redford if he wasn't the DL.
Yeah, He tried to pick up a punt, make a bad snap on a punt, make something out of it, and it ended up not only being a fumble instead of a safety, but a knee injury that ended his season. He was kicking the ball
Season
really well.
over then. He won't be back.
No.
Wow, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Big shame, because he's been trying to land on a regular basis with the team the past several years.
And he had earned that job and was doing it. Yeah.
What about the Lions just off the top of your hat, which you didn't bring a hat, let's just pretend like you've got a hat or a cap. When Calvin Johnson, I guess, retired, who became their primary receiver? I was kind of wondering about that today.
Boy, that's a good question.
I guess it's pretty well spread out.
Eric Ebron is part of that equation as a tight end.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, Matthew Stafford.
Because they're surviving pretty well considering Calvin Johnson is an afterthought now in some ways.
Stafford has one of the strongest arms in the NFL, and if you get open, he's going to get you the ball, and they'll find guys. But yeah, Calvin Johnson's got to go down as one of the all-time greats. The guy who is known as Megatron.
Megatron, right?
Just an incredible talent. You talk about athletic freaks. You mentioned Jalen Samuels earlier. Calvin Johnson at a whole nother level in terms of speed, size, hands, all the things that he had going for him. But he just got frustrated with and tired of losing in Detroit and was banged up and said enough's enough.
Kind of reminds you of another guy back there years ago. Barry Sanders kind of left early.
Yeah.
He got beat up a lot, so I think I'll go ahead and step away while I can still step away.
Yeah, and with him, it was his style of running. Cutting back. I mean, he'd have plays where he got 18 yards or netted 18 yards, and he'd run 40 on him and bounce off 3 or 4 people. It was great fun to watch. Those old Nike commercials with Dennis Hopper with him were fun to watch. All the things he did, but he took a pounding. He ran violently, and when you run like that, the collisions take a toll.
What about Jim Caldwell back to Indiana one day, maybe to coach the Colts again? He was there before, it went kind of rough, but now he's done so well in Detroit. He might be the kind of guy they may want to bring back there one day because, Indiana right now, the Indianapolis Colts, not living off a lot of success these days.
That franchise right now is all about Andrew Luck. If he's not healthy, they struggle. And even when he's healthy, they made some moves in terms of free agent signings and guys they kept and let go that were just bad decisions. And they've got him, but they don't have an offensive line to take care of him when he's healthy. So he's not healthy. And you've got to have that quarterback to be an elite team, but you also have to have a cast around him, and they don't have that right now.
What about the cast of characters down in Charlotte? Cam Newton, did he disrespect the reporter yesterday? Jordan Rogue, I think her name is. Did he disrespect the young lady from the Charlotte Observer?
I think he did. I mean, there's some stuff that's come out today subsequently that she had some racist tweets on her timeline going back to when she was in college, and there's no excuse for that.
Once you get involved, they're going to check you back when the day you came out of your mother, when they pulled you out. They're going to start checking everything.
People went back, found some stuff today, and the tweets were racist. There's no getting around it, and she sent out an apology for that. But you can't take that stuff back. People have screenshots of just about anything that's out there. So that was unfortunate, but I think that distracted from it. Doesn't change the fact that what he said to her and about her was just offensive to a lot of people because, one of the guys who used to be on ESPN, David Ubbins, said in a tweet, how is that what he said to her different from someone raising a question about African Americans playing quarterback?
Right.
Just because something is a stereotype and has been that way for a long time doesn't mean it hasn't changed. And a female reporter shouldn't be given at least some measure of respect. And Cam said, well, I was directed at kind of at all the reporters, but it's not what he said. And he got himself into some trouble with it. There's a lot of people saying it's no big deal, but he's already lost a couple of sponsors, Danny Yogurt and some others. If you're in that kind of spotlight, you have to be careful of what you say. I'll stick my foot in my mouth at some point on here or somewhere else and say something stupid, and it'll come back to haunt me. But if your name is on things, you're in that spotlight. You have to be careful.
One thing about it, though, Devin Funches could have a good nickname. They could call him Funny Funches. It's about a funny route or whatever. It was funny. We called him Funches last week, in my opinion. He had a great game. Yeah. Man, he had a great game. Plus, he left the game one time. They brought him back in, walking like he barely moved, just to get the first down that big play.
Because they had that pivot route they wanted to run with him, and it worked, and he came back out. He hasn't quite lived up to where he was drafted, but he's starting to show this year why they drafted him where they did, and him playing well, Kelvin Benjamin when he's been healthy playing well, Christian McCaffrey, even with the loss of Greg Olsen, the tight end, for at least 8 or 10 games. all those weapons are really making Cam Newton's life a lot easier.
It's interesting because the year they lost Kelton Benjamin, they went toward the Super Bowl that year, I think, and he wasn't there to play, and they still survived without him. So they're finding ways to get by without some of their key players, like you mentioned Greg Olsen. They're surviving without him. New guys are stepping up.
Yeah.
It's a fun team to watch.
Yeah,
and plus the kicker, Graham Gano, nailed the field goal, but he can't make the extra point.
Yeah, the extra points in the NFL are far from automatic these days. When they move them back a little bit farther, and teams have done more on special teams to make you feel pressure on those kicks than they used to when they were closer. It's a mid-range field goal now rather than that chip shot extra point it used to be. And there are a lot of kickers who miss them, but if you miss more than a couple of them, you get gone.
You
Roberto Aguayo, who was with Tampa Bay, they got rid of him. A number of guys who you miss a couple of them, it can cost your team's games, and you're unemployed because there are a lot of guys out there who aren't on NFL teams right now who can kick a football.
Plus, there was a guy, I think, on the Panthers taxi squad. He got moved up and kicked one of the games last week, kicked the game-winning field goal.
He missed one earlier. He missed a long one. I think it was like a 47 or 48 yarder. He's with Kansas City, I guess now. That's right,
because they beat the Redskins. The field goal was the difference.
Their kicker Santos had gotten hurt, and they pulled him off the Panthers practice squad. He missed one at the end of the first half. I think about 46, 47, but then he came back and made a big one later on. There are a lot of guys who can kick the ball. It's a question of which guys can kick the ball in the clutch situations. That's how you have a career.
Yeah, a couple of key things you mentioned. The stereotyping when they talked about the Panthers and Cam Newton and the clutch situation, the kick in there. Clutch situation, where will you be tomorrow night?
I will be with you in the press box at J.A. Tarpley Stadium, Dudley High School, for their rivalry game with Smith, and we'll have J.P. Monday will be at Grimsley for their game with Ragsdale. We're still trying to sort out if we have another freelancer for another game. It'll be the Northwest Guilford at High Point Central game, but we'll have those games at hsextra.com late Friday night and on Saturday morning.
Hey, one of your men on at halftime last week, Jason Gertner, joined us from Northeast last week. Enjoyed that. Good talk.
Yep.
And again, give us the HS Extra site again. How we get in there?
hsextra.com. That's all you need.
Remember, don't have to go by the Greensboro.com.
Nope.
Bypass it. Go to hsextra.com.
hsxtra.com.
It's pretty easy.
Yep.
Very simple.
That's the idea.
This is a question I'm going to throw to the kids, and they do get here tonight. This question is kind of a simple question because it just got me thinking, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Wow.
This might tell a lot about a person.
You're going deep here. Well, I've always liked orange sherbet, but sherbet is not ice cream. Ice cream, and this is getting a little bit exotic here, but a couple of the designer ice cream brands make chocolate ice cream with peanut butter mixed in. It's to me it's the ice cream equivalent of a Reese's peanut butter cup, and I could eat those all day.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I think they've got that maybe in the cooler at Harris Teeter, something kind of like that.
Oh yeah,
in a cheaper version.
Yep,
it's good stuff. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent
Appreciate
work.
it. Always
Excellent
a pleasure.
Work.
Thank you,
Joe Sirera. hsextra.com. hs and an xtra.com. Check out the website.